physics, astronomy buff, so always interested in space exploration and science fiction, how it all merges together in the reality of getting stuff done. So yeah, this will be a fun panel.
Jim?
I'm Jim Sheasby, and I've been writing for seems like forever. I remember writing my first one when I was in grade 4. My first novel didn't work out so well. But what really interests me is science fiction, and that's the genre that I currently write in is science fiction.
Thank you, Jim. My name is Ron Friedman. I'm a science fiction writer. I published one novel with Wordfire Press, that's Kevin J. Anderson Publishing House, and 18 short stories in different anthologies and magazines, mostly in the US and in Canada. I'm also a blogger. I write posts primarily on space stuff, all kind of Elon Musk and other space stuff. I have 8.7 million, sorry, 2.7 million views. And I'm also an administrator on Quora of a space called Spacefaring Civilization. So I really like this topic. I'm also a former Air Force intelligence analyst. So let's start with some question. The first question I would ask the panelists, and I encountered that in a lot of correspondence in my blog, people are interested, why invest in space exploration or space settlement, space colonization, when there are so many problems on Earth, like global warming, diseases, poverty? There are lots of problems. Why waste money on space? Mike?
Well, everybody on this planet can look up into the sky and we all see the same thing and we all ask the same question. So to me, that's human nature. You just have to get an answer. So yeah, we have lots of stuff in the ocean we can do. We have lots of stuff in the desert we can do. We're pretty much messing up our own home, but we look up in the sky, we all see the same thing. So of course we want to go see.
I look at it as space is the new baby. Everybody, when they have a child, has a new hope that this person is going to grow up. They're going to do great things. They're going to have a great life. And I think we look at space as kind of that new child. It's so new to us right now. We don't really know where space is going to go. We don't know, are we going to have colonies on the moon? Are we going to have giant space stations? Are we going to end up with Mars? Are there going to be colonies on Mars? Is Mars going to end up with multiple countries? Is the moon? It's all new to us, and there's all this hope behind this. And I think that's why we invest in this, because it rests as a new hope to us, as to something that may help us, because we are, some people say we are screwing up the planet, and there's hope that we will have other presence, other places in the solar system. And that gives us hope that even if we screw this one up, we might be able to escape to somewhere else.
Yeah, so it's basically, I say it's first of all, it's uplifting, give hopes, but also it's a way, like a plan B in case something happened to Earth. Like it's an insurance policy against extermination level event, something that like the things that wiped out the dinosaurs. I would like to add one more point. A lot of people see the resources that going into space as a conflict to things that happen that you can invest in Earth. In many cases, this is not a conflict at all. For example, investment in space means we will have weather satellites, and weather satellites can help fight climate change. Also, the telecommunication, it helps the economy on Earth, GPS, it helps navigation. So there is a lot of advantages in space that are actually helping Earth rather than taking resources away from Earth.
Yeah,
Mike.
Oh, go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, I see it as like what you're saying, Ron, is that the exploration as economic benefits to us. But I also believe that if we do everything solely just for the economics, the basic research that we will do will add a tremendous amount of benefit and push us in directions that we're not even aware of. So the masters and the PhDs working in the labs and the universities and working on different things and the science that they may develop, eventually leads to cell phones. And then you've got a whole bunch of, you've got this giant industry all centered around cell phones that we didn't even imagine would be here back in the 1980s. Saw hints of it in the 1990s, but in the 1980s, I don't remember thinking even that, cell phones weren't even on the radar. And that's where space is. Space, by doing things and by exploring and trying different things, it's going to push us in a direction that we haven't even anticipated.
And Mike?
Yeah, just lately, of course, with all these low Earth orbit satellites going up to create a brand new internet, basically, for everybody, basically. And if one assumes the world's population wants to be on the internet, then between SpaceX and whoever else is sending up these constellations, they're providing a huge, pretty ultra-modern service for the planet. But there's all these other people that are saying, well, you're screwing up the night sky. Like, our planet will never be the same again because you look up in the sky and that's all you're going to see is satellites. So it's interesting to me to see the balance between the money they're pumping into this, the benefits that the planet might get out of it, as far as you and me and everybody. And you know what? We change our universe as we advance, and maybe there's going to be no stars. Like, who knows? Who knows? So the decision-making process as to who allows all this to happen is very, very interesting to me. But yeah, right now it's business, and I find it quite interesting.
Yeah. Another aspect is inspiration. I think, Jim, you touched a little bit about it earlier. If you go back to the Apollo era, when the US was trying to launch the moon mission and successfully landed on the moon, there was a huge curve in STEM, people who choose to go into science, technology, mathematics, and engineering. Like on the graph, you actually could see a huge spike, and then it's kind of flattened after the moon landing program ended. So if we have something like something that could inspire humanity, inspire small kids, inspire people to be more interested in science, more interested in technology, that could mean a lot of kids, a lot of young people who will be inspired by a Mars landing project or Mars colonization project will choose to go to school, to universities, and study those topics, which will, again, go back to the economy. This will give a big boost to the economy, even if they are not going to work specifically in the space industry.
Yeah. Right. So, I mean, so rounding back to our topic of the ethics of it, the question becomes, a lot of this is driven economically, and the question is are the economics, like Michael has pointed out, of all these constellations going to be the driver, and the ethics of ruining the night sky being pushed aside, or are these going to is there going to be a system that is going to regulate all this and it will control the ethics? And I mean, I listened to another talk about law in space, and right now we don't have any of those rules or regulations that are controlled. So it's the Wild West. Like up in the skies, it's really, once you get out of our atmosphere, it is there really are no rules up there as to how we're going to govern things or how we're going to get things done.
Actually, there is space law. There is something since the 70s?
Space Treaty, the Space Treaty.
And it's pretty comprehensive what you can do and what you can't do. So there is actual rules, including things like no weapons in space. There's all kinds of stuff you can do and what you can't do. But, and like for example, stuff they're sending up, depending on where it's going, lower Earth orbit, landing on Mars, there's tons of regulations regarding what you do to that spacecraft before you can launch it, sterilizing it, et cetera, et cetera. And then you get the US creating the Space Force with, I don't know what that means, an army in space. So what does the law mean? I have no idea.
There is a panel about that tomorrow.
Yeah. But I mean,
but you have to remember that space has been weaponized. There are weapons in space. So to say that we have laws are only enforceable if you have someone there to do it. And if the people want to do that, which brings back the ethics portion of it. Is it that the people are going to look at that? So if we don't look at it outside of our atmosphere, what are we going to do when we start approaching other planets? And you know, who's going to be there as a regulator to say, hey, you can't do this or you can't do that, and here are the reasons why you can or cannot do that.
And to have regulation, you also need enforcement.
Exactly.
If you put regulation and nobody enforce it, then can't do much. Okay, so do we want to go to the next item?
Sure.
Planetary protection. This will be divided into two sections. The first one, as you know, a lot of people are inspired to go and start colonizing and do mining and businesses on Mars. But Mars is one of the planets, one of the bodies on our solar system that may have had life in the past, most likely by bacterial life, and maybe even have life today. We don't know. It may be in some underground water. There may still be some Martian native life, and also in other planetary bodies like Enceladus, maybe Titan, Europa. And I read an article a few days ago that maybe even on Ceres, that's the biggest asteroid, may have liquid water underneath the surface. So Elon Musk currently is pushing us into going to Mars and colonize Mars, but there may be bacteria there. There may be some native life. What do you think we should do? Should we postpone the landing until we know if there is or isn't life over there? How research is going to be affected? Could we contaminate Mars with Terran, with Earth life, Earth bacteria that will go there, and that way we don't know if any bacteria we find, if it's originated from Earth or from Mars? Should we stop the Mars colonization or Mars exploration altogether until it goes to a very, very rigid decontamination process like the NASA rovers that are currently going into there? You probably heard about the Israeli spacecraft that crash landed on the moon with a troglodyte. It's a little water bears, and they may be able to survive those for a few years. So what do you think we should do? Go to Mars or wait until we know better if there is life over there or not, and how to protect the local life?
So I believe the easiest answer is to say we shouldn't do anything. We shouldn't send anything to Mars what has the chance of cross-contaminating with the bacteria that may be there that could cause diseases back on Earth, and we shouldn't bring anything back to Earth that could possibly contaminate Earth and destroy Earth for everything else. That is by far the simplest answer. But that's not the answer that mankind is currently taking the path towards. We are going to be sending people out, and we're going to be doing that. So I think the first answer is to do nothing is not realistic. So what is the next step that we could take in order to eliminate any cross-contamination? And just wondering if you guys have any opinions on that.
First, I'm supporting Mars. I hope other people here will have opposite opinions, so we have a more interesting discussion. So one thing, it's not that Earth and Mars had not been exchanging materials in the last few billion years. Asteroids or comets have been crashed on Mars and on Earth and flew debris into space. And some of those debris, some of these stones fell into Earth as meteorites. And I think they did some research that bacteria could survive if it's deep inside the stone, that on Earth could survive the whole impact, flight into space, and crashing into Earth. So if there was life on Earth, and I know there was life on Earth.
Sort
if
of.
there was life on Mars,
There might be life on Earth.
And there still might be life on Mars. There is a chance that life already came and exchanged biological material with Earth in the last 3 or 4 billion years. So the contamination is not complete even now, even if we don't go there.
So the argument against that is that's a theory. Like you can say we've done this, we've done that, but still you cannot conclusively prove that there is not something on Mars that could be brought back to Earth that could destroy this planet. And the question is that this is the only home we have. And this is the only place we can live because we haven't taken the time to go out and colonize anything else. We just haven't had that time within we don't have the technology and we need to develop that. Is it something that we should be even considering to go not just to Mars, but anywhere else that has the possibility of bacteria that could be brought back? Which means you could send out unmanned probes. You could look at this stuff. You could, and it would protect Earth and it would protect Mars or any other place that has bacteria in it. And it wouldn't create any problems. We would gain the scientific knowledge. We would gain the information. The only difference would be is we wouldn't be putting our footprints on that planet.
So from what I've seen, NASA, for example, has a plan to send probes to Mars to collect samples, but they have to send another probe to Mars to retrieve the samples, and they got to send a third probe to Mars to bring them back. This is all like a 20, 30-year plan, believe it or not, just to look at samples. Now, Musk has got something different, like in 10 years, let's build a city on Mars. So I kind of have a negative attitude towards human beings in that human history, wherever we've gone, since the beginning, we wiped stuff out. There's just absolutely, we've decimated everything wherever we've gone. And unless humans change how they feel about where they are, I don't think you can stop them from going to Mars or to anywhere and just leaving a mess. So they were asking who's the CEO of SpaceX, Gwynn, I forget her last name. And she's, yeah, of course she says we're taking precautions, but we're not stopping. So as a private business, they're not stopping. So you can say a government may or may not do it, but as a private industry, she says we're not waiting for anything. We're going. So.
Okay, thank you, Michael.
Yeah.
I'll bring the counter argument. Mars is currently either sterile, there's no life at all, and if it has life, it probably only bacterial life, something like viruses or bacteria, or like single cell, or maybe not something without mitochondria.
Kind of like COVID?
Yes, and it's pretty either completely sterile or pretty close to being sterile. So if you say, on the other hand, that you want to take Earth of the life diversity on Earth and make it into a sterile or nearly sterile planet like Mars, I'm sure everybody will say this is a bad idea. We don't want Earth to be like Mars. So why not bring Earth life into Mars? And why not settle into Mars? This has so many advantages. It will make life multiplanetary, if I may quote Elon. And it also gives us all the advantages of science, technology, spin-off, economic advantages, insurance against extermination or against civilization collapse. We may be able to reboot civilization if we have a living civilization on Mars. Now, I'm not saying we should exterminate any life on Mars or not research life on Mars. We should do that. We should probably even avoid any place we find liquid water. We should avoid using it and try to, I'm not sure about what to do about regulation until it is very, very thoroughly investigated by probe and scientists to verify if there is life or is no Martian life. And if Martian life is found in some of these pockets, make it some kind of a reservation where we cannot interfere or introduce Earth life into these environments. But for the rest of Mars, I think we should colonize it.
Just today, I saw some simulations of Mars with oceans. And I've read that Musk in his musings has a way to do that through some kind of nuclear bombardment, which is all insane right now. But tomorrow, 10 years from now, stupid ideas can be good ideas. So who knows? So people are definitely looking at Mars as a water world, bringing asteroids, comets to Mars, getting the water. Like there's plans that we can't do today, but tomorrow certainly. Science fiction, that's what it's all about. So whether we should do it or not, I don't know. I think if someone makes a good enough story and enough people love that story, it's going to happen. Whether you got to do it to protect Earth or not, people haven't been on this planet for all that long, really.
Well, the exploration should be done with the caveat that there could be nothing that could happen to Earth. So if there's any risk at all and you're going to destroy the one place that we can live, then we shouldn't proceed. If we have done the science and we say, no, there's only bacteria on Mars and we don't feel there's anything there, and even if that bacteria can harm us, we have a plan that we're going to sterilize it. So we're willing to destroy that life to preserve Earth, which it may come down to. If you find something that is going to be harmful to people, then it's going to be that becomes the moral dilemma, is that you're killing any sort of bacteria you found on Mars or Earth just to proceed with what we feel Mars should look like. And so, as we pointed out before, every time man puts his foot on a new place on Earth, we have changed things. And when we go out and we put our footprint on Mars, we will change things. And the question is are we doing it solely for our benefit? And I think back in the 60s, people would say, yeah, there is no other benefit. It's for the benefit of man. That's the only benefit there is. But now we're starting to become more environmentally conscious, and we're starting to say that we need to protect the other species on our planet, and we need to do things. We need to make sure that there is nothing on Mars that is going to come back to bite us in the ass and to hurt any other species that we have here.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's actually my next point about planetary protection. It's about protecting Earth from bringing some kind of dangerous biological material from space. So one argument is that we have already been exchanging materials with other planetary bodies in the last few billion years. And other things, for example, something like COVID, the voyage from Mars to Earth is expected to take something like 6 months, 7 months, if you take the most fuel-efficient trajectory. If there is any bacteria, somebody is sick, maybe 6 months is enough isolation time to detect that. It's indeed a dilemma, moral dilemma or philosophical dilemma. What?
You know what though? If you have, say, a city on Mars and you want to go there as a tourist, it's an awfully long trip, and I don't think they're planning on too many round trips. I think if you want to go to Mars, you're going to stay there. I think you're going to become a Martian. So people don't want to spend 6 months in space to go and look at the hills and come back. I don't really see it unless we really develop some kind of new technology. So bringing things back, like Ron says, stuff's been landing on Earth. Earth is made from all the crap out there in space. So, and it's happening every single day. We're getting bombarded by everything. So I think one of the things I recently read is a lot of the effort, the money they're spending in satellites right now to sterilize them is so that when they do take a sample and they find something, they want to be sure that it's not us. It's not our sample that we're examining, it's the Martian sample. So part of it is just to keep the science pure. You want to make sure if you're spending all this money, the science has to be pure. To bring it back to Earth, I'm freaked out over that. I don't like it. I don't want to see anything brought back in a nice little container that I trust scientists. I trust the government. They'll never let anything bad happen. So I really don't like to see stuff coming back, for sure.
That's what NASA is currently doing. They're
Yeah.
making sure to sterilize, make sure there is no contamination on anything that's go to Mars.
But there is.
I don't know. I don't know what other countries will do. China is now sending, and United Arab Emirates is sending us missions to Mars, and other countries will start soon. And if private sector will go there, I'm sure they will not take very expensive precautions to make sure nothing is being contaminated.
Yeah, and space law kind of dictates what the level of contamination the ships can have, and none of them are sterile. None of them, like, they all have something. It's just within reason. So it's so many particles per cubic whatever. So the ships are not sterile, but they're as sterile as they can make them. So even then, like, what are we doing?
But things
don't
will
remember.
come back. I mean, they're not doing all of this exploration to go to Mars without having an economic tool that they, or a lever that they can flip. I mean, to say that they're doing this all as an altruistic way to go out and establish a Mars colony and a Mars economy that will be separate from Earth, I think is not what their goals are. Their goals are to make money, and since those people who are touting we're going to Mars live on Earth, stuff is going to be coming back here. That is just, whether it be minerals, and then those minerals have bacteria on them, or objects or factories are made to ship stuff back. I'm not sure what would be cost effective to do that, but there has to be an economic driver, or else the exploration of the New World was done because people thought they could make money. They were going to bring spices back.
And industry in space, in weightlessness, and projected industry on the moon, they can make incredible things, and it's very cheap to launch something back to Earth. So yes,
Right.
Of course.
Yeah.
But Mars is
Mining.
far. Mars is far.
Mars is far. So the question is, what is the ethical reason to go there? Is it just to say that we can go there and we want to put our foot on the peaks of Mars, like we have? We're mountain climbers. We want to scale a new peak, or are there economic drivers or reasons that we need to do that? When it seems to me, you made a good point, Michael, about the moon. I mean, it'll be cheaper to do a lot of this manufacturing and weightlessness and gathering minerals from the moon that we can use here on Earth, rather than spending all this time and effort to send people for 6 months to a planet, when really there is no economic driver. It would just be pure exploration. And if it is pure exploration, does it need to be done by people we carry a lot of bacteria inside of us? That's just the way we are. And I know we'd be wearing suits on there, but why not just do it remotely with robotic equipment?
Yeah, I don't think it's purely exploration. There are going to be other motives as well.
So what would the other motives be, besides
I know of one that's kind of sick, is like Elon Musk is doing all this cool stuff. He's a private guy, and he can afford it. But NASA, the stuff that goes into NASA, it comes from all over North America for sure. And if NASA vanished, a lot of people would be out of work. So senators, even though some programs are really inefficient and stupid almost, they're really pushing the government to keep their people employed in the space industry. So it's part of it is just keeping people working on the planet. It's just pure income.
No,
And
I
that's
think there are
just
more.
one stream of income.
There's more advantage. I don't know. Our civilization is not very stable these days, and past civilization collapsed. There's nothing that guarantee our civilization from collapse, or even all human become extinct. And by having, it's like put all your information in one drive. It's better to have backup in another drive, even if it's a lower quality drive. So if we can initiate a civilization on Mars or in I don't know, O'Neill cylinders or in other places in space that can be self-sustained, can survive and continue to grow and prosper and develop new stuff unrelated to Earth, it means it's like a backup. If something catastrophic happens, that's not if, it's a when.
Ron, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Modern humans haven't been here for very long, maybe a couple hundred years, if you want to call it that. So when did this idea take shape that we have to have a backup plan? Like, we're just another organism on this planet, but somehow all of a sudden we have to have a backup plan. I wonder what's driving that.
Well, this whole discussion is about morality, and do you think it's moral to let us become extinct?
So the
maybe it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Somebody wrote in the comments, the moon wasn't visited to make money, and we could talk about the reasons why we went to the moon, the ethics behind it. It was really a space race. It was us versus, it was the free world versus the communist horde. So that's why we ended up going there. But now I think we're taking a more pragmatic, well, I would like to think, based on articles I've read, that people are also looking at it as the reason we're going to go back to the moon is not just so we can put more footprints there, but because there is an economic reason to go there. And it's, some of you, and you guys have already pointed out, it's much easier to launch stuff from the surface of the moon into space that you could use to make space stations, to make living habitats. I mean, if you're going to live on the moon, it becomes a bit of a problem, I would think, based on the gravity. But there are definitely mining consortiums that would be more than willing to go to the moon, and then all of a sudden they can shut down mining operations that we have on Earth if they could manufacture it cheaper in space. So I feel there are economic reasons to, like when somebody pointed out we did not, the moon wasn't visited to make money. I believe that ultimately we will go back to the moon because there's an economic reason to do that.
And if space flight will,
Go ahead.
If space flight will be cheaper, then it will be also economic to do research in orbit, do like medicine research or electronics. Asteroid mining could become economic. Like, think about the few millions of tons of gold. It should be worth something, I'm sure. Or other material, maybe helium-3, if we ever make fusion economical.
So another really curious point was, and I don't have the numbers to back it up, but they were doing some tests on reproduction in space, mammalian reproduction, and it doesn't really work all that well. Like, things don't develop, or they don't even get pregnant. So there's no guarantee if you create a city on Mars, for example, that anybody can even be born there. Like, there's no guarantee that human reproduction even works off of a 1G planet. So it's kind of an interesting conversation, but like there's no guarantees about anything.
Yeah, we can try to.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can try to test this using an artificial gravity in space, in orbit.
Well, they have, and they found that when they've tried to inseminate things and watch how cellular reproduction works, it's not that successful. They get some really unexpected results. So why we want to go there? Yeah, there's intellectual reasons, but the reality, the money involved, the technology involved, and pure staying alive, it's horrific. It's a real big problem.
So maybe we can touch one more topic before we open the discussion to the audience. What about risk to human life? A trip to Mars is going to be very, very dangerous. It could be mechanical problems. It's very complex. I think about 2/3 of the craft that ever tried to land on Mars, the artificial one, the robotic missions, crashed. So this is going to be a very dangerous mission. On top of that, you have the issue of radiation. It could be solar flare, it could be galactic cosmic radiation, and the health risk of microgravity, that maybe some of it could be resolved with artificial gravity, but on Mars gravity is about 38% of Earth gravity. And yeah, so it's going to be a very dangerous mission with some mortality rates. I'm not I don't know exactly by how much. So what is the moral dilemma of sending people to Mars or to space when
Okay,
it's so dangerous and risky to our health?
I want to ask you a question, Ron. Um, right now on the space station, the astronauts have to work out every day. They have to. They've designed some pretty fancy stuff up there to work out and keep their bone density up and stuff. But if I'm buying a ticket to Mars for 6 months, that spaceship had better have a good workout machine, because by the time I get there, I'm going to be a vegetable. So just getting there, just never mind radiation and stuff, but your body isn't meant to go 6 months or any time without gravity. So why would anybody do it? Because they want to. That's what we do. We explore stuff, whether it's writing software or going somewhere, we got to go see. So
Well,
I'm sure there'll be a huge lineup of people that want to go, pretty much guaranteed.
it's an intellectual problem. How are we going to get from here to there? It's a challenge. So, I mean, yes, we're going to explore that, and we want to do that. And private industry is, I think, is going to probably lead that race but it is an intellectual conundrum. How just as the problems you pointed out, how do we get there? And we're going to solve all of those issues. I'm sure will be solved as we start going there. How are we going to get to the moon? I mean, even as late as the 1950s, people thought, going to the moon was impossible. But, by 1969, we did it.
Microgravity is very easy to solve. We know how to create artificial gravity, and that's by spinning. So let's say Elon Musk with a Starship project, what he can do is connect two Starship with a tether and let them spin around the center of gravity. And then he can artificially create gravity similar to Mars gravity or Earth gravity, depends how strong it is. This has already been done in 1966 by the Gemini 11 mission. They tried to create artificial gravity. So this is something we know how to do and we can do if this is a big issue.
And I did talk to
other risks as well.
Yeah,
many other risks as well.
I talked to a scientist last year about that, and he actually worked on a space station project. And as far as creating some kind of artificial gravity with a spinning mechanism, he said they can't. It's too expensive. Like, it would be super expensive to build a device that wouldn't fall apart in space that would spin. So they just don't. It's just a matter of money. It's just a matter of money.
If you build a wheel space station like you saw in Space Odyssey, yes.
And they're building
but if you have two small bodies connected with a tether or with cables and spinning around center of gravity, this has been done in 1966.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, so let's open this session for question for the audience.
So we have an interesting Q&A question that says, what about the negative economic implications, not for the companies, but for the employees and those whose goods and sciences they buy, let's say mining on the moon versus on Earth? So basically, you're going to take a mine and the manufacturing process off of Earth, and you're going to move it to the moon, which probably is going to require a lot more automation. And so now you're going to have those jobs have left and are no longer there, and now they're going to be. And I guess my answer to that is we are continually doing that.
Yes.
No precedent. With every industry that we have in changing the way we manufacture cars to the way that we manufacture candy, and things are becoming more automated, and we're losing jobs. And I mean, if you believe the commentators on the Business News Network, it's technology is the thing that is going to save business. So at the end of the day, those who become more efficient, are they taking jobs away, or are they allowing us to end up with products that previously we couldn't have had because of the cost of manufacturing them on Earth? So I agree there is a problem. We're going to lose jobs, but I think we've already tackled that issue in all sorts of other industries. Somebody else in the Q&A has pointed out that mining in space means the pollution associated with mining is left off Earth, and that is another very good point. But is that a good thing to leave tailings and stuff on a pit on the moon? You know, cluttering up and taking a moon which is cratered and has had lots of problems with it, but taking that and making it something else, is that ethically and morally correct, just to say we can dump our waste somewhere as long as it's off planet away from us? And I think that there will need to be regulations as to how we're going to handle that, because you don't want that mining operation to also be spewing those tailings off into the atmosphere and creating clouds that would be navigation hazards or other hazards. So there will be, there will have to be some sort of regulatory framework as to how these are happening, because I think dumping pollution is not acceptable, even if it's off planet.
And also, every rocket launch does create a pretty heavy carbon imprint in the Earth's atmosphere. Like, they're generally clean exhaust, but it's heavy in carbon. So if you're launching rockets every day, yeah, we're going to see an impact sooner or later on our atmosphere.
Yeah, I disagree, Michael. This is done now. Now the two most typical fuels are either hydrogen and oxygen. That one depends how you make the hydrogen, but theoretically it's creating water. If you take it from natural gas, then maybe there is the aspect of taking it from natural gas. The other option is it's some type of kerosene mixed with liquid oxygen. That one does create CO2 pollution or CO2 emission. But the new generation of rockets that are developed by SpaceX and Blue Origin will be used methane, and oxygen. Those could be, if you mine the methane and take it from natural gas, distill it from natural gas, it does. But the plan in the long term is to make methane from water and atmospheric CO2 and energy from the sun, solar energy. This is the process how rocket fuel is going to be generated on Mars. But also, the long-term term is to make the same process on Earth, which means that the future rockets will be carbon neutral. Cool. I mean, you take CO2 from the atmosphere, you make it into rocket fuel, and then the rocket fuel burn, make the same CO2 back into the atmosphere.
Yeah, and we may find another lift mechanism to take things from the surface of Earth up into orbit. There are lots of ideas through SF that have been put in, everything from space elevators to magic levitation devices. So I guess we'll see what the future holds.
Okay, we have about 3 minutes left for the panel. Does anyone have another question? Or want to get something from the chat?
I saw this one comment. I thought this was, it says, "We are all going to die. The people going to Mars will be volunteers who know the risks." It's like asking, what's the morality of allowing people to free climb on the mountains? So that comes up with our comment on the astronauts heading off to Mars. Is it morally right for us to risk their lives to go off to basically put a footprint in? And we already did this going to the moon. So I guess there will always be people lined up, more than willing to take the.
But you know what? You want to buy a ticket, $50,000 to climb Everest. You're going to be stepping over bodies. You're going to be leaving your junk behind. Some Sherpa's going to die for your entertainment. This is what we do, right?
Yeah.
So go to Mars. I agree. It's going to be interesting.
I have one question here. The moon is already a toxic site. Dust will kill you breathing in. So tailing from mining likely won't be any more dangerous than that. Also, there is no indigenous life on the moon that there is need to be concerned about. When
you know what though? We talk about life as biological life as we know it. Well, hey, guess what? Just because it's fun in science fiction to make them look like us, there's probably something out there that we have no clue about. Silicon-based life or anything. Like, how are we supposed to know until we find it?
So
we may bump into something that is it really going to hurt us? We don't really know.
Which is another reason to limit the amount of pollution and the amount of footprints we leave behind. It's like backpacking in the mountains, leave no trace.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we run out of time. I would like to thank everyone to joining this session. It was an interesting panel, and I hope people enjoyed watching it. So, thank you very much. Selene, you can take over.